How's it going, all you amazing Mets fans? It's your guy Wardy, and we're back at it with the huge walk-off victory as the Amazons take down the Washington Nationals by a final score of 2-1. And what was your typical snooze fest for the Amazons, where they had nothing, and I mean nothing, to do against Jake Irvin, as he had another masterclass outing just like he did 2 starts ago against this Mets team. No less, the Mets get to the bullpen, and that would be the demise of the Washington Nationals. How many times have we seen this New York Metropolitan season where this Mets team has absolutely nothing, and I mean nothing, to show for it against the respective starting pitching, but as soon as they get to the, it is not. But at the core of it, folks, the Mets find themselves now in sole possession of that third wildcard spot, unless the Atlanta Braves rally all the way back 9-0 against the LA Dodgers. The Mets will now have gained ground in the wild card, and they look to do more. This was a far from perfect game, a sweaty one, a really uninspiring ball game by all counts, and if it wasn't for Sean Manaea and the brilliance, who knows what's going to happen in this one, right? But everybody, thank you all so much for chiming in live on a replay to the latest New York Metropolitan postgame segment, as we are live reacting here, as we always do, to all the amazing news as the Mets get the job done. They take down the Washington Nationals, folks. I see Ethan, I see Mike, great member, David, Edward, Alberto, great member, GSU, Jason, Chicken, Edward, Jesus, going up the list. It's a Marte party indeed, and we're going to break down at great length everything that transpired in this one. I'm going to get into this one very fast tonight, folks. We're going to talk about the pitching, what was so brilliant about Sean Manaea, now making history, the first starter in 2 years, not just for the Mets, but across Major League Baseball, to find himself with 7 straight starts of 6.2 innings or more. This is the same Sean Manaea that wasn't even a guaranteed full-time starter for the Mets heading into the season, as he has swung around from being a swingman, a reliever, a starter with the Padres, with the Giants. Now here with the Mets, he has become quite literally their ace this season. We're going to get into more on his brilliance and how good he looked against the Nationals. And on the hitting end, this was a snooze fest, everybody. It was a snooze fest from the beginning. But it doesn't matter in the end, because what matters is a victorious matchup for the Mets. They gain ground in the wild card standings. It might not even be live updated yet. We're going to see it is. It'll be a full game once the Atlanta Braves officially lose to the LA Dodgers here shortly, everybody. I see Frank Sessa with the $2. Thank you so much, my man. Amazing. GG. Lindorless Mets. Even with no Lindor, thankfully, ultimately was no problem in the end. It was a problem in the beginning, but at the end, it wasn't a problem. But first and foremost, to all my live viewers, as we got 600 plus chiming in live here on YouTube and on X, thank you all so much for taking the time as we live react and break down together to the latest New York Metropolitan win by a final score of 2-1 in our official New York Metropolitan post-game show presented by BetUS, America's #1 sportsbook, who has you covered with all your sports betting needs. Make sure you check them out today by using your guys' promo code YouTube150. That way you too get a 150% bonus on your first 3 deposits up to $2,000. Yes, I have absolutely been under the weather as of late. All things Mets talk. I'm at the end of it now, which is why I got a raspy voice, and I was also screaming my head off Saturday in Philly at Citizens Bank Park. I was there in the ball game. I saw the Mets lose 6-4 after being up 4-0 without Lindor, so I still have a little bit of a harsh voice from that as well, so I apologize. I appreciate you chiming in, no less, folks, and we got plenty to break down. But folks, before we get into all the details on this one and what this means for the Mets and what was not an inspiring victory but a great way to end the ball game, to rally some momentum heading into game 2 against the same Nationals team, before we get into all the details, folks, we gotta let it rip with the one, the only, the official WardyNYM post-game jingle. Shout out to Greg and Jordan with the official WardyNYM post-game jingle. If you know, you know. GSU, you'll get through it, my man. You will, I promise. The same way that all you amazing Mets fans, the 1,000 watching now, I want to see your initial live reactions in the comments right now, and the comments down below to all my replay viewers, as many of you guys will see this after the fact, and wherever you get your audio podcasts, whether that is Apple, Spotify, Google, you name it, make sure you're chiming in here with our amazing friends, as always, on these respective platforms, and thank you all so much for doing exactly that. But alright guys, let's get into this one, because this was a not inspiring ball game by any stretch for this New York Metropolitan team. We all know that. This was a Mets team that heading into this matchup without Francisco Lindor, and a lineup that I was not a lover of. Truly, Carlos Mendoza starting Eddie Alvarez again. I don't know why we're doing that over Acuna. It's almost like, if you call up the kid, he's looked good so far, maybe give him more playing time, maybe miss me with the pitching nonsense, as if the matchups will make a difference for Eddie Alvarez, who certainly can't hit a lick for the most part other than being a pinch runner. Doesn't make all that much sense to me personally, but again, no less, the Mets win this one. Let's rapid fire break this one down. D-Mac with a $5 haul. Thank you so much. He says, need other veterans to step up. Marte has carried the team before. He can do it again. Yes, he can, and Marte was huge. We saw one veteran step up outside of Tyrone Taylor with the heroics yesterday in the 8th inning with a home run. Sadly, the Mets lost, as we know, 2-1. They win this one 2-1, and it starts with the offense first breaking out with that same Tyrone Taylor there in the 8th inning. Tyrone being that difference maker. Jose Iglesias leading off the ball game, having a couple hits. He would be vital, and ultimately, even though Mark Vientos truly did everything he could to make this a more difficult game than it needed to be for the Mets, and I love Mark, this just was not his game. He's now, I think, 3 for his last 33, 34. He's not been playing good baseball, but you know what? The Mets get the victory here. That is our big takeaway, and yes, I understand it wasn't sexy, and I understand there are clear problems with this Metropolitan offense that we're going to get into. We're going to deep dive this all plenty in our post-game coverage tonight, but at the core of this, all that matters is just win, baby. You got to say it like Broadway Joe himself. That's all you need to do from now till the rest of the regular season. And without Francisco Lindor, this win is that much more vital, that much more important. The Mets are now 1-2 with the Francisco Lindor-less Mets era. How will they fare tomorrow, assuming he's not back until potentially as soon as the Phillies series? We will find out then. But appreciate the donations, guys. Thank you kindly for that. Kevin Weiss, great member. Mike, how are you? Yeah, I would expect him to start. Fletch, how are you, my man? John, great members for chiming in live on a replay. D. Wilson, everybody, thank you to our 1,200 concurrent already, folks. Let's rapid fire this one. I got a lot to say. So, as I mentioned, Sean Manaea making history tonight. If you would have told me at any point preseason that Sean Manaea would be leading the charge in this Metropolitan rotation, that he would be single-handedly really cracking the record books, something we haven't seen in 2 years, going that deep into ball games consistently. Oh my goodness. And yes, you're right, just one baby as Al Davis. That is 100% correct. I don't know why. I'm trying to think, doesn't Broadway Joe have a famous quote as well that's along the lines of winning? If I'm wrong, please let me know. I'm perfectly fine to be corrected here, but Al Davis, that is correct. I remember him with the Raiders, a long time ago, of course. Let's see there. I'll be at the game tomorrow, says Tyler, hoping McGill can get through the first couple innings and then keep it smooth sailing. Fingers crossed. And speaking of Tyler McGill, it is now his job to lose that, we know, as Paul Blackburn is going to be out for whoever knows how long with that spinal leakage, and his spinal fluid's leaking, something along those lines. Absolutely bananas. Nose to nose with the Atlanta series looming. This has been some year. It absolutely is. And that it's going to come down to that Atlanta series more than likely. How can it not, right? So, all right, guys, as we see, this is the same Mets team that, mind you, over their past 7+ games, I'm going to throw out this final stat for you before we rapid fire break down this ball game and get into all your questions, comments, and concerns, and just your initial reactions to this victory, folks. As you guys have been seeing in the highlights, Grimace is back at Citi Field. He was there trying to get the rally going. The Mets even painted a seat there in the Section 300s by the Coke corner just for Grimace himself. And as you guys can see, Grimace in my background is poking, saying, hey, how you doing? The Grimace era lives on. The new Grimace era. We're officially 1-0. There's no looking back, baby, and that is what we love to see. But what we don't love to see, folks, is when the Mets have an offensive upside that is very little. Over their past 7 games entering tonight's matchup, they have a batting average of 206, 329 on the slug, and a 625 on the OPS. This is exactly why I told every one of you a week ago the Mets have a problem with their offense, because their pitching has carried them so long, but it's only going to carry them so long. At some point, things are going to change. At some point, point, we're going to have a problem. At some point, it's going to be the demise of this club. And that has been that we have seen for the Mets that were 3-4 over the past 7 games or so. Fast forward today, yes, did they win? Did they win pretty? No. But I'm far more concerned about winning right now and then ultimately good victories coming out of that naturally than trying to win in a specific way, because if we try to nitpick that, it simply is not going to happen. The Mets, this was as textbook of a shitty win as they have had this year, but the walk-off is what makes it all sweeter in the end. And as we saw in the beginning, folks, this was a pitcher's duel. We saw Sean Manaea, the Samoan southpaw, matching up against Jake Irvin, and Sean Manaea would thankfully best the two in the end. Even though Jake was fantastic, Jake Irvin carved up the Mets twice in 3 starts this year, both of which were at Citi Field, which is discouraging considering the fact that we had no home field advantage in any stretch, but the one time we're in DC is when we finally tacked on. It is what it is. I digress. Sean Manaea kicks off the ball game as he does best with an easy 1-2-3. In the second, because of course the Mets don't do anything offensively for the vast majority of the ball game, we get another 1-2-3 for Sean here in the second, this time with a pair of strikeouts. And in case you guys did not watch the game or are listening over radio or Howie or Keith or wherever it's going to be, the Mets starting lineup tonight, folks, was as follows. It was Jose Iglesias batting leadoff at short, Jesse Winker batting second and right field. We saw JD Martinez batting third at DH, Pete Alonso batting fourth and first base, in which I want the Mets and us Mets fans to juice up Pete Alonso as much as we can for this homestand. May very well potentially be his last as a New York Metropolitan. Having said that, Alonso had yet again some god-awful at-bats that I'm not going to rag on too much. He is just continuing to prove why the Mets cannot rely on him, not only this year down the stretch without Lindor, but why we probably can't rely on him in certain situations going forward, which will definitely go in hand with how the Mets evaluate him come this offseason. Again, I love Pete. I hope things fix itself, but we got basically 2 weeks left this season, and it's the same nonsense we've seen all season long. I have had it with thinking that Pete Alonso at all could be a difference maker. If it happens, great. That'll be a cherry on top, because that is far from something that I sadly expect, and I think a lot of you fans don't expect either with the way that his season has went. He's not even going to hit 40 home runs this year. Like, I know that we've been spoiled, but can we just appreciate that for a second? He literally is not even going to hit 40 home runs this year. He needs to have a tremendous pace at basically hitting 7 home runs or so in the next 2 weeks, and that is how it's going to happen. Is it going to happen? You guys let me know here in the show. But after Alonso, we had Mark Vientos there batting, and Vientos had a really bad day. You know, he had some defensive upside there. He had a big inning where he fielded every ground ball induced by Sean Manaea. Sean's final inning there in the 7th, in which he was brilliant. But Vientos, just not a good day at all, continuing his struggles. Tyrone Taylor there, Francisco Alvarez, Eddie Alvarez, who should have never started the game. And yet again, a prime example of why Eddie Alvarez should have never started the game is what we saw. Leave it to the Mets to pinch hit him late in the ball game. That same pinch hitter and not Sean Manaea, Starling Marte. Starling grounded out in his first pinch hit opportunity an year or two prior. Second time, takes full advantage, rips out of left, and that walks off this ball game. But before we get to the walk-off heroics, let's start here with how the Mets had themselves a very uninspiring ball game. It was pitching dominant, to say the least. In the bottom of the second, after another 1-2-3 by Sean Manaea with a pair of Ks, Pete Alonso strikes out terribly for his first at-bat of the day. Nimmo strikes out looking, and then Vientos grounds out. On the top of the third, Keeper Ruiz gets on with a single. Then we see Mr. Young get on with a sac bunt. Fielder's choice, a little bizarre. Alonso had a really bad throwing error to second base, but Iglesias duped the runner at second so well to make sure that he didn't run past second and go to third. Then we see a pop-up of a out from Nunez trying to bunt, could not get it down, popped it up instead. Not what you're supposed to do when you bunt. We all know that. That thankfully has an out happen. Afterwards, Sean Manaea gets James Wood striking out with some bulldog heaters right down the man, lefty, and that does it for the inning. He strands the runners. We get to the top of the fourth. Juan Yepez gets on with a double. Tenna drives in the first run of the day, an opposite field RBI single, and this is sadly all Sean Manaea's fault. Sean had a great day, but Sean is absolutely the reason as to why this happened. He had a couple hanging pitches, belt high, that were barreled. First one was righty-lefty. Second one was lefty-lefty there that we saw going opposite field, and Tenna, the second baseman. That gives the Nationals an early 1-0 lead, and you're saying to yourself, okay, this is unfortunate. This is a Mets team that's down 1-0 with a lifeless offense. You don't have a large amount of optimism or expectation that they're going to still win this ball game, or at least rally back. I know it's 1-0, but we know when we have had lifeless games for the Mets, it's been the matter of when are they going to show those opportunities to break out. The Mets did have a great opportunity in this one to break out, but I'm going to tell you exactly why it didn't happen, why I was about to pull my hair out, and thankfully we end up happy and smiling in the end in this one. But if you guys are watching live in a replay and wherever you get your audio podcast, thank you all so much for chiming into the latest New York Metropolitan postgame show presented by BetUS, guys. Of course, let me know your initial reactions in the comments here live on YouTube, the comments down below, and my over 1,000 concurrent viewers that we have on X. Make sure you guys are hopping over to the YouTube channel, subscribing there, because unlike what we do on YouTube, on X, guys, I'm not interacting with the live chat. So if you're chatting right now, I don't see it. I only see it from my YouTube commenters. Hop back over there. Help us get to 27K. If you enjoy the consistent coverage and all things Mets in and off season long, we got you covered, folks. And I just want to have your voice heard. I want to see what you guys have to say. Camp with the $2 donation says, Marte should have been starting. He is super clutch. Look, Marte's health was the reason why he didn't start. Still banged up after that hit by pitch on Saturday. He was awesome. It was great to see him have that 2-run triple. I was literally jaw-dropped when it happened. I was so pumped up for Marte in person witnessing that. Then we see the Atlanta Braves just officially lost to the LA Dodgers, baby. We're up a full game in the wild card again. Let's effing go. We see Jacob, my man. Let's go, baby. Let's go indeed. Jacob, an amazing editor of mine. He does a fantastic job. Make sure to follow him on Twitter X at Jacob. And I know I always say Pacini, but I think it's Piccini, right? Jacob, if I'm not mistaken, something along those lines. Jacob, Piccini. Follow him on X. He does a great job for me and a great job for fellow people in the space as well. But as we reel back into this one, we talk about this 2-1 victory. We now find ourselves in the inning where we all thought, or at least we expected, hoped that the Mets could find themselves bouncing. And it all begins here that we would see in the bottom of the fourth. But it would not be before the Mets would thankfully get a runner thrown out to end the top of the fourth that we see there. Alvarez on Alvy action, baby. We see Francisco El Troll with the throw to second. Eddie Alvarez, the speed skating Olympian, with the tag, and that does it, folks. We then advance to a half inning later. Jose Iglesias gets the Mets' first hit of the day. It's an opposite field single. After some chin music, mind you, he took a heater this close right on the chin. If you hit Jose Iglesias, I'm driving my ass to Citi Field right now, and I'm going to have some choice words or whoever hit him. Am I going to get anywhere with it? Probably not, but at least I'm going to scream my head off and do something about it, unlike what we see so many teams do nothing when guys are getting roughed up, chin music, actually getting drilled, whatever it might be. No less, that opposite field single would continue Jose Iglesias' now 10-game hitting streak, everybody. Fantastic stuff there. And oh yeah, baby, Ethan, we love in the chat, not to get on a tangent. If you hate Atlanta, give me a hell yeah. Everybody, a 1, a 2, a 3. I want to see you spam it in the live show. To my replay viewers, spam in the comments down below. This rivalry is going to be hot when the Mets are in hot Atlanta before the month's end. And right now they gain the ground there. And hopefully the Houston Astros pistol whip the Padres. We'll see what happens there. Everybody, a 1, a 2, a 3. Hell yeah! That's what I want to see, baby. Hype me up. Shout out to you, Ethan. Love that, my man. Thank you, thank you, thank you. But we see Jose Iglesias in the fourth. He gets on with the single. Winker with the fly out. Brilliant base running by Jose Iglesias, right? He's going first. He's going to second. And he's safe. There we go. You're feeling okay. Mets got a runner in scoring position. 1 out. Let's tie this effing ball game. We're right back in this one. Okay, then you're going to tell me JD Martinez grounds out. Okay, not happy about it. It is what it is. JD grounds out. Pete Alonso gets on base. He actually gets on base here. It's an infield single. The Mets have runners on the corners here. They got him with 2 out. All they need to do is find themselves a hit, and they get themselves a tied ball game. Brandon Nimmo, after torching baseballs, absolutely smoking these bad boys to right. If they weren't foul, they were completely out of here. These were absolutely demolished. Irvin was hanging some pitches big time, and the Mets were barreling them hard. They just didn't have a lot of success in this matchup because Irvin was doing everything he could to induce those ground ball outs, those fly ball outs brilliantly to guys like Jesse Winker that I felt like he flew out every at-bat today for the most part against his former team. Mets' bases loaded, 2 out here for Mark Vientos, and Mark Vientos somehow, some way, I truly was taken back when this entire stretch happened. Marky V with an infield dribbler. We all saw it together, right? You see it go down the third baseline. I jump out my seat because I know we're at least tying the ball game here. Certainly, we're at least tying the ball game. No! Marky, I love you, but oh my god, I know you're slow, but I didn't realize you were that slow. Francisco Alvarez literally made Mark Vientos look like a snail today. And you know how crazy that is to say? Alvy isn't overly fast. He's definitely solid for a catcher that we know, but I saw Alvy bolting down the line, and even though that he would be out on a play that you could argue shouldn't have been out, and we'll get to that here shortly, mind-boggling to me that the Mets did not tie the ball game in that situation. By a show of hands to all my live viewers and replay viewers, how many of you thought the Mets were tying the ball game when Mark Vientos had that infield dribbler with bases loaded there in the fourth? I really thought it was going to happen. It didn't happen, however. But what does happen? The Mets strand the runners there, and they're still down 1-0, heading to the top of the fifth. As with 2 outs, Sean Manaea allows a runner to get on via walk, that being a Nunez, the shortstop. Nothing else transpires, however. And later, we see in the top of the sixth, Sean Manaea, as a surprise to absolutely nobody, has himself yet again another 1-2-3 inning. Sean is cruising against the Lester Washington Nationals club. Yes, they got themselves James Wood. Yes, they got themselves Dylan Cruz. Yes, they got themselves some exciting young talent in there, but they also didn't have a CJ Abrams in the lineup today, which is something to make note of. They also didn't have that being a Luis Garcia, who's a very, very solid infield option for them as well. So those are bats that I don't know if they're out with injury right now or if they just didn't play today. We'll probably see them tomorrow, I take it, if they are healthy. 2 guys that definitely have a lot of oomph in this line for the Nationals. All the more reason that the Mets dropped this game. It would have been inexcusable knowing that you're facing the depleted Washington Nationals. It simply cannot be done. I hope you're right, D-Mac. I firmly believe it'll happen. Just a bad slump for him at the moment. Josh with a $3 holla says, Lindor soon and hopefully Senga. Keep going, Mets. Speaking of Senga, the soonest he can return is 9 days from now, as a matter of fact. It'll be September 25th against the Atlanta Braves in Atlanta. Fingers crossed we do see Kodai back when that happens, but who the hell knows where the Mets are going to be standing postseason-wise from now up until that point. We all know how much changes and how much happens in just a week span. I can only imagine what things are going to look like from now up until September 25th, because we still got quite a bit to go. Give me one more second, folks, before we continue breaking down everything in the live show. Thank you all so much for the time. Make sure to smash a like and subscribe on it if you haven't already. And if you guys are watching live on X, which I know a vast majority of you guys are right now, to our 2,000 concurrent viewers, again, once more, highly implore you all to hop back over to the YouTube channel if you haven't already. Smash a like and subscribe on. Help us get to 150 likes by the end of the live show. That'd be greatly appreciated for my live viewers. And thank you so much for the support there, as always. Appreciate the donations. Appreciate the discourse here in the chat as we're always breaking down the latest in Metsland. And speaking about the latest in Metsland, Sean Manaea had, as you'd expect, another 1-2-3 inning for his final inning of the day. All those ground outs were fielded by Mark Vientos. The Mets would have Sean Manaea's final line as follows, and I will say this, not that I was at all bothered with the Mets deciding to pull Sean when they did. I was slightly bothered by the fact that we were doing that, however, when we didn't have any offense. It was like, oh my God, okay, Sean has been our one certainty and we pulled him out of just 85 pitches in 7 innings. Why not try to start the 8th with him, knowing that if we bring in a reliever, he gets cooked right away, then that's it, you know, because the offense hasn't been doing anything. I know the blame is on the offense, but let's try to keep this just a one-run ball game, right? No less, Sean Manaea did his job. The bullpen did theirs as well. And we see a final line of Sean Manaea of 7 innings, 4 hit, 1 earned run, 1 walk, 6 strikeout baseball. A 3.26 ERA there on the season for Manaea. Budo struck out the side in the 8th inning, which was chef's kiss. Absolutely gorgeous. Speaking of the 8th inning, we saw the Mets as well try to do some damage rather, but not before we saw in the bottom of the 7th, Pete Alonso had a deep fly out to right field, Nimmo singled, and Vientos had a double play, which sadly ended the inning. Sean Manaea, without even doing a complete deep dive on him yet, and we will before the end of the live show, he easily gets a strong 7.5 out of 10. Usually I give the guys around a 7.5 when they have these kind of lines, and funny enough, folks, and I have it in my notes, I'm so excited to share with each and every one of you. Oh my God, I was guys, this is pretty damn good. I'm not trying to brag, but I'm saying I've been watching Sean plenty. I feel like I put 2 and 2 together as to the outing we were going to have. I predicted pregame today. If you don't believe me, watch our pregame coverage. It's live on YouTube right now still. I predicted Sean Manaea's final line today to be 7.1 innings, 5 hits, 2 earned runs at most, potentially 1 earned run and 1 unearned run, 2 walks, 8 strikeouts. If you don't believe me, I have it right there in my notes to prove it, even though there we go. It's focus. Sean Manaea's final line, 7 innings, 4 hit, 1 earned run, 1 walk, 6 strikeouts. I'd say I was pretty close. Pretty damn close. So you know what, Sean? Because of the fact that you gave me such a close final line to what I initially predicted, I'm going to give you an 8 out of 10. Screw the 7 out of 10. Sean was money. He's been money. And I think he deserves a little bit more credit than what he's been getting, along with making MLB history. Like, are you kidding me that this is the same guy that somehow, some way, Sean Manaea is the first starter not only for the Mets, but in Major League Baseball as a whole that has himself with 7 straight starts. And my apologies, everybody. I'm just trying to focus my camera to see if this thing will lock back in, and it has. Sean Manaea, the first starter in 2 years to go 7 straight starts of almost 7 innings, 6.2 to be exact. Like, seriously, I can't get over that stat alone. That is so mind-boggling to me for a guy that's been far from a reliable starter in Major League Baseball. Really, the past 3 years, past 2.5 years, he just has not been it. Mets found to in his game. He worked well with Driveline that we've seen in previous off seasons, and David Stearns and this pitching lab got the absolute best out of their Samoan southpaw. And the Mets would go on to win this one 2-1, as I mentioned, everybody. But let's break this one down just a little bit more before we get to the end of the ball game here, because in the 8th inning, we see the Mets get work done. Tyrone Taylor with the double that we mentioned earlier in the show. Tyrone heroics for a second straight game there in the 8th inning. Late game heroics wasn't the home run that we would have surely loved for a second straight night, but we will gladly take there a leadoff double to kick off the inning. Let's see how the Mets would respond from here. Alvarez then gets on with an infield single that would then be called out after review. I had one major gripe with this because even though the one angle did show that Alvarez was just out, that same angle did showcase WardyNYM looking like his back foot was ever so slightly off the first base bag. I could be wrong here, but it was a little bizarre of a situation because one, Alvy seemed borderline safe to begin with, but you need conclusive evidence to win these challenges that we know of. So the Nationals, of course, get the call because God forbid somebody went the Mets' way here, and especially down the stretch in this playoff race the way that we have it. But then you add in there that WardyNYM's foot wasn't even fully on the bag potentially. Yeah, I was pretty heated in that moment. That was one where it's like, okay, yeah, I hope that I'm looking at this the wrong way and I'm the one that's going delusional right now, because otherwise this is yet again another botched call by MLB officiating. Sounds like a day that ends in Y, sadly, because it is. Speaking of the Mets, however, we get to the top of the 9th. Edwin Diaz comes in, and what does Edwin do there that we see because the Mets sadly don't do? What am I saying? We got to go back in the 8th just for a second. I'm rambling. We saw, thankfully, Law come in for Irvin after that challenge play. So Derek Law comes in, Marte comes in to then bat for Eddie Alvarez. Marte grounds out right away. So the Mets are trying to get something going. We got Jose Iglesias being the difference maker because of course he is. Jose with an RBI infield single in the most Metsian way possible. No, it's not a clear RBI single up the middle. No, it's not a clear opposite field RBI single or one pulled in between second and short. No, it's going to be instead one that hits off the glove of Derek Law, the reliever, and he has no play. The run comes home. It's a tied ball game. The Mets do not score more from there, however, as we would see Jesse Winker get on with a walk. JD Martinez with a strikeout to end it, which was a bad at-bat by JDM. JD, who looked fantastic in that Phillies series. I thought he looked really good. For a guy that didn't record a home run, let alone really any hits, he had some of the worst luck because of the wind, because of just how he was barreling the baseballs, and getting robbed by Stevenson in Game 2 of that series. His first start in that series, because he didn't start Game 1. I believe Jesse Winker was there at DH. No less, JDM, not an inspiring day at all. Similar to Pete Alonso, I did not like his at-bats all that much, especially his last one by JD. We saw really some bad sliders down and away in the dirt that he was just eating right away. And I'm like, what are we doing, JD? I know you're a free swinger. I know that's how you're going to be. But still, how are we off to this rough of a start here in this at-bat when all we need is just a poke one? Just poke one, and we're cruising in this one. Nope, the Mets keep it a tied ball game 1-1 for Edwin Diaz. Edwin, who's trying to bounce back after giving up that walk-off hit there to the Phillies a night or so ago. Thankfully, Edwin would bounce back, but not before a little bit of the dramatics, because of course Edwin Diaz and dramatics go hand in hand like cheese and wine in the 9th inning. What, you think you weren't going to be trembling, shaking in your boots as a Mets fan in a late September game here against the Washington Nationals? Seriously? Edwin comes in, and right away Edwin gives up a hit. What does he do? He allows the batter there and Wood to get on with an opposite field single, and then he steals his 13th bag of the year after 1 out. Mind you, this came because Edwin Diaz threw himself a meatball that James rightfully hacked opposite field, right out of the reach of the 5'8" Luis Angel Acuna, who was just plotted in for defensive replacement at shortstop, as Eddie Alvarez was done in the game. He started there at second base, then he was pinch hit for Starling Marte a half inning prior, and then we see Luis Angel Acuna come in for the remainder of the ball game there in that spot in the batting order, 9th, and in shortstop, shifting Jose Iglesias back to his more natural position of second base. It's a little annoying, though, because not that I think would be a much of a difference, but maybe Jose gets closer there. I'm not sure. Is that reach much of a difference for Luis Angel Acuna, who isn't much taller than me at all? I'm a short schmuck, so is he. Love him, though. He's electric, very athletic, too. Very crazy stat, complete tangent. I was talking to my girlfriend earlier because we were talking about the heights of players and just how obscene. Like Shamanai is 6'5". Tyler McGill, who I've had the privilege of meeting, he's 6'7". I mean, I literally felt like I was looking at my dad. Like, hey, Dad, how are you? Then we look at Luis Angel Acuna, 5'8". Luis Angel Acuna is only a couple pounds lighter than Mark Vientos at 5'8", when Mark Vientos is 6'4". It was crazy because when I saw Acuna pregame today warming up, he was really fit. Like, you could tell that this guy is in brilliant shape. Gave me a lot of shades, honestly, of Francisco Lindor. Lindor, who isn't even 6 foot, very broad, very stature, just a very well-balanced body of a pure athlete. And you got to be as a shortstop, right? But it was really interesting to me how Acuna, for his size, has so much muscle mass. Like, none of it's fat. Like, he's just in brilliant shape. That was something that I thought was very notable. And even though that, yes, he didn't get that ball there to James Wood, his opposite field single to kick off the inning, I was happy to see Acuna in the ball game. Truthfully, he's a guy that I wanted to see in the ball game from the beginning. Did you guys want to see Acuna starting in this game? Let me know in the live show and my replay viewers down below. Let me see it. And if you guys are watching this and listening on X, I told you this before, I'll say it again. Hop back over to the YouTube channel in case you haven't already. Thank you so much for doing that. On the YouTube channels where you guys can interact in the live show with our hundreds of followers here as well. Watching live are almost 27,000 strong of subscribers here on YouTube. Join the community, get involved, and have your voice heard with our amazing fans, all of our amazing fans here at WardyNYM. And when I say fans, I'm not saying fans of myself. Obviously, I'm talking fans of the New York Metropolitans or whoever you're a fan of that enjoys the content. No less. Let's see. I think Wardy is a man. Oh, I have multiple man crushes on the Mets. That's without question. Luis Angel Acuna's got to work his way up to that pole, though. You know, it starts with Francisco Lindor, obviously. The man's on the wall behind me. El Troll's been on the wall behind me for like a year and a half, 2 years now, I feel like, at least. Yeah, of course we do. I mean, that just goes in hand. You love guys that you're rooting for there and all facets of sports. I'm like, I would literally die for Francisco Lindor. Like, that's only somewhat of an exaggeration because we're sick Mets fans. That's just how we're wired. The same way we're wired, and even though this was far from a sexy victory, the Mets win. So that's ultimately all we're going to care about in the end. And after Edwin Diaz gets out of the jam because James Wood gets a single and stolen base, Teno would strike out, and that would strand Wood. Brilliant work there by Edwin Diaz. Gets a couple quick groundouts. After that hit, allows the runner to stay stranded there at third base, and then we get to the bottom of the ninth. The Mets are trying to walk this thing off. And in the bottom of the ninth, we see Pete Alonso with arguably his worst at-bat yet of the day. He strikes out brutally yet again, sadly, and nothing else happens in that inning. We then get to the top of the fifth inning. Reed Garrett, who's been nails. I love Reed. I know he gave up the double that he did to Stevenson. But look, maybe if you didn't start Danny Young to begin the inning in the 7th, Saturday against the Phillies, we wouldn't have had that effing problem to begin with. Mendy, you know, just some food for thought, just some things to think about here. No less Garrett, we see allows Vargas, doesn't get on, but does have a sac bunt. So automatically, the leadoff runner is at third base with 1 out. Reed Garrett needs to make sure that man stays at third base. And that's what he does. He gets a ground out to Keibert Ruiz, and he gets a ground out to Jacob Young, and that would be the inning. And the bottom of the 10th, the Mets are trying to put the hammer down here. Mark Vientos is starting the inning at second base, which absolutely no one wants. Arguably the slowest player on the Mets. It's crazy to say, but it actually is, especially if DJ Stewart isn't actively on the team or playing. Yeah, obviously Marky V, not known for the legs, sadly, and we saw that on great display in this matchup. He would be pulled from the ball game. Harrison Bader comes in as a pinch runner at second base, and we're going to get ourselves cooking here. We see Tyrone Taylor is intentionally walked because the Nationals are hoping for a big double play ball. That is what they're trying to get. It doesn't happen, however. Alvarez flies out, which moves the runner to third, and as soon as Starling Marte comes up to the plate, I already finished my graphic. I threw him on the thumbnail, and I put in the template, the bottom right. Marte RBI wins it. or win it. The reason why it says Marte RBI win it is because I didn't know if it was going to be a single, a double, a home run, whatever, but I had this huge gut feeling that Marte was going to be the answer here. Why? Because even Marte coming off the bench has had a flair for the dramatic for the Mets. He's had walk-off heroics before. He had some really quality at-bats against the Phillies on Saturday before going down with the hit by pitch, and Starling has overall been swinging the bat better as of late when he's been in the lineup. So I didn't hate this matchup at all, and my superstition would become a reality that we all saw. Marte rips one to left, the winning run comes in to score, the Mets win this one by a final of 2-1. On a scale of 1 to 10, folks, now that the Mets are comfortably, at least for tonight, in pure possession of that third wild card spot, they're 1.5 behind Arizona. They're 3 behind San Diego. If the Padres lose tonight, they'll be 2.5 behind San Diego. I got to ask you guys, on a scale of 1 to 10, what is the confidence level in the New York Metropolitans making postseason this year? That is what I want to see from each and every one of you. Let me see it, folks. Thank you all so much for doing exactly that. My man Mike in the chat says Eastbound and Down, one of the most underrated shows and hilarious comedies ever that I actually binge watched for the first time at spring training. Was it not this year, but last year with a bunch of fellow Mets YouTubers, just MLB YouTubers as a whole. That was so much fun. Eastbound and Down is effing hilarious. If you know, you know. It's obnoxious. It's its own thing for sure, and very fitting for the main actor. I forget his name, but that was like the perfect role for him. Basically what Andrew Chafin has been striving to be throughout his entire career. So as we speak of playoffs here, and as I ask you guys on a scale of 1 to 10, what do you think the playoff configuration, what do you think the likelihood of the Mets cracking playoffs is, your confidence level? We got an 8 from Eric. We got a 6 from our great member Kish. 9 from Eric again. 13 here from Eugene. We see Deloney with 5, Camp 7, Thomas 2, Ethan 7, Holy says 9, Kevin says 7.5, White, we see Jacko with a 6, Chris with a 6, D-Max with a 6, still hopeful, no change. How can New York pressure gobble up a lifetime New Yorker, says Zach. I don't know what you are referencing that to, my man, but I appreciate you chopping in less. Let's see, Bobby G says 7, great member, longtime follower here. Chris says 4, Chris is not as optimistic as other Mets fans are, even with the Mets a full now game in this playoff spot. Leo says 10. We see 5.5 from Tom. 78% chance of making postseason, according to my man AZ. Great member of the chat. Hope you're doing fantastic, by the way, AZ. Emerson, 9 out of 10. So Emerson's feeling very good. Righteous Gemstones is excellent. I haven't watched that one yet, but I have heard very good reviews about it. I know that's a comedy as well with him in it. I definitely will need to check that out. I don't know what's on. It's either on, I want to say it's on Max. I think it's on Max. It's on Max Showtime. It's on one of those movie channels that I like to call them turn streaming services that I have for like every single thing, even though I know that I should probably cancel 2 of them because I only watch at least 1 out of the 3 that I currently have. Regardless, we're winning the division. Eugene's got a heavy confidence right now. Carlos at 8.5 as well. Maybe the culprit is the same guy responsible for ruining Alvarez and Beatty. Okay, so is this a shot here at Eric Chavez, Zach? Is that what we're talking about? Enlighten me in the chat. 2, because Mets suck. Devin, I will say this. If you're going to say the Mets suck, even on a night where they certainly did not hit for shit at all, you might as well say it on the nights that they're not going to win the ball game, especially the nights where they don't do it in walk-off fashion and are now full game in a playoff spot, still repping the best record since the NMA for the most part, like basically double the amount of wins versus losses. Pretty damn impressive for this Mets team, all things considered. When you look at this, has been all without Kodai Senga, right? And if the Mets get Kodai Senga back, which they fully intend and hope to do right now, basically less than 10 days from now, or right around 10 days from now, things may get better. They still may get better before the year's end. This offense, though, this offense is a bugaboo, everybody, and it goes without saying. And speaking of this offense, let's now do a transition into not only the offense on the pitching and everything in between, folks, but before we do exactly that, and before we get closer to wrapping up the shows, we're almost 40 minutes in this one already, but it doesn't matter because I'm just having so much fun breaking down the latest of Mets land because they took care of business. It wasn't sexy. It was not pretty. And yes, I do have some major concerns with their offensive configuration right now still, but just win ball games. That is what this team needs to do. The same way that if you guys are interested in sports betting, then I don't know what you're waiting for. What you need to do is to check out our awesome friends at BetUS that has you covered with all said sports betting needs. And all you guys got to do is use your boys promo code YouTube. That is YouTube, the word YouTube, the number's 150, so 150 all together for a 150% bonus on not your first, not your second, but your first 3 deposits for all your sports betting needs. To everyone that tailed my UFC 306 picks this past weekend, I apologize. Of course, we had one leg that didn't hit. What was the leg that didn't hit, Wardy? It was the main event. It was Sean O'Malley getting cooked by Merab because he could not stand. Merab had ground game the entire time. Sean couldn't get any good shots in, and that was that. I literally went 4 for 5 on my 5-leg parlay. We nailed everything leading up to that point. It was brilliant, and if it wasn't for literally an upset where the champ finds himself losing, we would have came out victorious. So if you guys had shortened legs, if maybe you weren't as much of a Sean O'Malley fan as I am, then you came out winning. If not, no worries, because I'm going to show you guys now a 2-leg parlay that you guys can tail should you wish for the games that we're going to have in MLB starting tomorrow. Not today. I want to focus on tomorrow's games here. We got the Mets as a money line favorite at -156. I don't want to bias bet right now, though. Phillies Brewers, that's an interesting matchup. Pirates Cards, Twins Guardians, Red Sox Rays, Tigers Royals. Oh, I like that. I like that a lot. That's a tough one. Tigers haven't been playing bad baseball, but I've been obsessed with this Royals team and Bobby Witt, what they have been doing. Tommy Pham, the GOAT himself on that roster, getting the job done. Even Paul DeJong being competent, too, as a batter is crazy. We got Yankees, Mariners as well. If Mariners offense wasn't so Jekyll and Hyde, I would really want to hammer the upset. I'd like to see Randy and Justin Turner ball out there, but I just don't know. Giants and Orioles. Orioles as the underdog is crazy. Absolutely bananas. I feel like I need to hammer that, but they haven't been playing their best baseball the past month either. I'm going to go Red Sox Rays. We're going to go Pirates Cardinals, Phillies Brewers. Ooh, this is a tough one, folks. I think I'm going to actually I'm going to do it, folks. I am going to do it. We're going to go with the Chicago Cubs at -150 against the Oakland Athletics. This is a tough one because I know the Cubs have been nipping. There's still multiple games out of the playoff spot. They will need a miracle and a complete Mets free fall to get in, but they're still going to be playing till the very end. And this is a 2-leg parlay that's 10 to win 16 or 10 to win in the case of 667 or 10 to win 606 depending on the individual bet. Good luck to you all that tail these bets, but make sure you bet responsibly with our awesome friends at BetUS. Now, guys, let's hop back in this one and let's talk about the major issues that the Mets have had, sadly, and we'll get into our parlay if it hit or missed in tomorrow's coverage. Hopefully, if the games are over by time, we break down, hopefully, a series victory for the Mets. But on the hitting end, let's get into hitting for this Mets team because they had nothing. They had nada. We all saw they had nada in this one. And this is one of those things for the Mets where it's far from shocking. It honestly was just reaffirming the same thing that we have seen time and time again with this Mets team. When they don't hit, they certainly have had the pitching. If there's one thing that we can be grateful for, the Mets haven't had too many terrible stretches of not having either, right? When they didn't have either, that's funny enough when they had their worst month of the season, 11 games below 500 total on the year that we saw back in May, because everything was completely up in the air. The bullpen was cooked. The rotation wasn't going deep at all. That's another thing we can greatly appreciate. This Mets rotation didn't sniff the 7th inning if it literally was a beautiful fresh pie that's sitting on your porch. You know, it's just enjoying itself. You're thinking, okay, that's going to be nice cherry pie we're smelling. No, we're smelling shit instead. The Mets couldn't sniff anything that you would call beyond, say, the 5th inning for the most part in the first half. Second half, Chaminade is breaking records out here. Luis Severino's doing his thing. David Peterson is literally such a dog. It's insane. Jose Quintana is showing that he is not a southpaw Carlos Carrasco. He is more than that. I digress. This Mets team, their pitching has been brilliant. The offense, though, not so much. And as we look at the Mets offense in this one, they on the hitting end, found themselves with one more hit than the Nationals, 6-5, an expected batting average of just 235. But when the Nationals are at 187, that's a difference maker here, folks. Jose Iglesias, we saw. Big day, 2 for 4 with the RBI. A 323 average at 808 OPS. Imagine telling everybody preseason that the minor league signing of Jose Iglesias that wasn't a defensive certainty, that hadn't played a full season in MLB in like 2 years, basically. You mean to tell me that Jose Iglesias is going to be a rally starter? That he's going to be our guy? That he's going to be the guy leading the charge for this Mets team in so many ways this year? Early in ball games, stepping up for Lindor in the leadoff spot. Late in ball games, grinding out at-bats. That is Jose Iglesias. Oh, my God. I don't know. I can't say anything beyond that, but oh, my God is right. Jose Iglesias, thank you for continuing to save my life. Grimace is certainly helping, don't get me wrong, but Jose Iglesias has a thing or two to say about my happiness on a day-by-day, because without him, Mets don't win this ball game. Luis Angel Acuna didn't get at bat. Jesse Winker, though, was 0 for 3 that we saw. 260 average, 777 OPS. He did not have the day I was hoping he would against his former club, especially Irvin, which he knows well as a former teammate. The lefty-righty matchup there, he just flew out a lot in this one. Hopefully, if Jesse's in the lab tomorrow, we can see him have a better showing than today. I don't know what the pitching matchup is off the top of the dome. I'll check it in a second, but I'd imagine that... are we going to see one of Patrick Corbin or Mackenzie Gore in this series? I feel like we're going to at least see one of those guys. Let me actually just double check real quick. Tomorrow's pitching matchups is we got Parker versus McGill. Is Parker a lefty or a righty? He's a lefty. Okay, so no Jesse Winker tomorrow. Never mind. You're going to see Starling Marte back in the starting lineup tomorrow, 100%. And you're also going to see, Harrison Bader didn't start the day, and Harrison Bader's splits have been better against righties and lefties this year. But watch, we see Harrison Bader in the lab tomorrow. Tyrone Taylor, I wouldn't hate the idea of him staying in the lab again too, but we'll see what happens. Brandon Nimmo tends to do well against lefties. Brandon had a nice hit today too, which I appreciate. He didn't do anything overly crazy today, but the at-bats were better. Very much better for Brandon Nimmo. Really, really impressive. Hacked away some huge foul hacks to the right side that led to a walk, and then had himself a nice hit as well. So on the offensive end, JD Martinez, not a good day. A 241 average, 741 OPS. He didn't see Irvin well at all, and this was very reminiscent of the last time Martinez faced Irvin. Not their previous game on the 9th where the Mets scored 6 against him, but that first at home earlier in the month, I believe, or a month prior, where Irvin just cooked us at home, going like 8 shutty. I'm pretty sure JD was part of that game. Pete Alonso 1 for 4. That doesn't tell the whole story, though. It was an infield single. Alonso just had more of the same nonsense we've seen all year, sadly. A 242 average, a 794 OPS. Brandon Nimmo that we see. We got 3,000 concurrent viewers in here. Thank you all so much for taking the time. If you guys haven't already, make sure to smash a like and subscribe on if you're watching live on YouTube. If you're on X, what are you doing, guys? I appreciate the support on X, but X is solely just a way to help you guys know that we're live on YouTube. So hop back over there, interact with us in the chat, hit that subscribe button if you find yourself enjoying the content, and stay tuned as we will continue to cover the Mets to an absolute T, in-game and out all year long, folks. Let's get into this one. And when I say in-game, I didn't actually mean in-game. I meant to say in and off-season all year long. What was wrong with JD? Just not playing every day and not getting any younger. That's the reality of JD Martinez. That it is what it is. JD Martinez is having a line that he, funny enough, said in spring training he was hoping to avoid. He said, if I sign with a team like the San Francisco Giants, knowing how hard the ball is to fly out in the Bay Area, if I have a line that's closer to 20 home runs, 70 RBIs, and OPS down, people are going to rag on me when those are the factors. When in reality, it doesn't matter what ballpark JDM is in. He's been in a fairly deep lineup for the most part this year. Pete Alonso has not done himself any favors. I'd like to make that clear. Pete literally hasn't protected JDM for shit this season. When JDM has batted ahead of him, that really hasn't happened much. This is a duo that we thought was going to dominate this year, and it simply didn't. And it honestly has more to do with Alonso than I think it does JD. Because JD, you know what to expect to a degree. You expect a regression. Pete Alonso, no one expected regression to this magnitude unless you firmly believe that he was going to choke big time as a guy that can't handle a walk year after denying the Mets contract extension of 170 plus million last trade deadline. Not this year's trade deadline, but last year's with Billy Epler, if you know, you know. Speaking of the Mets and their offense, though, Pete Alonso talked about him. Brandon Nimmo 1 for 3, a 227 average, a 728 OPS on the year for Brandon. Marky V 0 for 4, 270, 850. Needs a better day tomorrow. Just bad day to play today for Mark. Harrison Bader with a run scored, a 245 average, a 677 OPS. Tyrone Taylor 1 for 3 with a run scored, a 240 average, 695 OPS. Francisco Alvarez, baby, a 230 average, a 669 OPS. Eddie Alvarez 0 for 2. No hits, nothing. I know that Francisco didn't have any hits today, but that's all right. Starling Marte, 1 for 2 that we see with the RBI, a 272 average, 721 OPS. I think we've learned the lesson by now, Mendy. Can we stop starting guys that we know shouldn't be starting? With Eddie Alvarez, please. He isn't even eligible to be on the playoff roster if the Mets make playoffs. Luis Angel Acuna is. It's almost like you should start the kid that actually has potential to impact this team in a premier position with our top MVP candidate player in Lindor out. Why is this so hard to grasp and comprehend? I don't understand it. I really don't. Because if Luis Angel Acuna was in this lineup today, he only could have made things better. Eddie Alvarez did absolutely nothing. This entire lineup, outside of Iglesias and outside of Tyrone Taylor and Marte pinch hitting, did absolutely nothing. So, yet again, another lineup that I didn't like from the beginning, and that held true to not being a good lineup. It's almost like there's reasons for this, guys. Say it with me. Start him tomorrow. Yep, you're preaching the choir there, Matthew. I think you absolutely should be doing that. Let's see. Of course, when we get JDM, he sucks compared to when he was with the Dodgers. That just happens, though. Dodgers culture's better. Deeper lineup from last year, too. Got to keep those things in mind. Still decent, but imagine he had another 2023. It would have been awesome if he had another 2023. But it's very easy to hit for the Dodgers at times because it's the Dodgers, how their formula is, their continued offensive success, no matter who's out there, they're wired differently. And they've had a organization that has built a foundation that is so far ahead of teams like the Mets still that goes in hand with getting the best out of your grizzled vets. Same way that they've had recent success, whether it's been guys from Kevin Kiermaier or up until they parted ways with him, Jason Hayward. We've seen a lot of the vets in years past kind of rejuvenate themselves in short sample sizes with the Dodgers because they know how to get the best out of a lot of players, especially in guys coming off of down years due to injury. Wait, Acuna can be used in playoffs? If I'm not mistaken, he can be used in playoffs, yes, because of the fact that he is actively on the 40-man. So if you're not on the 40-man, you can't be used in playoffs. If you're actively on the 40-man roster, however, you can. Luis Angel obviously is, which is why the Mets can utilize him. Eddie Alvarez was never on the 40-man, and they didn't pick him up until after the September deadline. Post-September deadline, all players that you picked up in the waiver wire or minor league trade that weren't active on your 40-man, you cannot have in postseason play should you get there. So Eddie is just a short-term option for the Mets that they know that they cannot utilize beyond the regular season. Why are we not playing Acuna? I digress. That's all I got to say about that, folks. But that's it on the hitting and on the pitching. And then this is going to wrap up the show, folks, here shortly, not too long after this, to our over 3,000 concurrent viewers. Thank you all so much for taking the time there, folks. I greatly appreciate that. Let's see. And yes, I did see something I actually want to make note of because Disha Thozar pointed this out earlier as well. But it was actually insane how such little of a turnout there was at Citi Field. Even for a Monday night, even with the Mets losing 2 out of 3 against the Phillies, they're still tied for a playoff spot. Why in God's name are Mets fans not showing up right now in our final homestand of the season when playoffs aren't even guaranteed? Why the hell are you not packing the house? Like, do you guys actually give a shit? Like, do you guys actually want the Mets to make playoffs? Because I assure you, the odds and chances of Mets making playoffs are far greater when they have a packed home crowd rooting their asses off every single inning for this Mets team versus having a snooze fest where you can hear a pin drop. And if it isn't for Starling Marte, the Mets hang themselves heads low on a brutal loss to the Washington Nationals. That should never happen. I'm calling all to you Mets fans. If you guys live by Citi Field, if you guys are frequent Mets fans that go to ball games, do yourself a favor and try to go out of your way to go to at least one, if not multiple, this week. I'm going out of my way after being in Philly this past Saturday to be there this Friday for the game when I don't even reside in the state. At least a 2.5-hour hike for me that I'm really looking forward to doing. This is going to be a really fun Friday for stuff beyond just Mets. I'm very excited to share with you all, but I'm going to wait to do that because I like the surprises. I think they're more fun that way. I think you guys are really going to get a kick out of what I'm going to show you guys on Friday. But having said that, really discouraged to not only see the lack of offense by the Mets in this matchup, but equally discouraged by the fan attendance not being the way that it was. I can understand this if this is first half of the Mets when the Mets aren't hitting shit. They're 11 games below 500. They're not doing their thing. But seriously, why are you guys not showing up? I get it. It's a work night. It's Monday night. Okay. But how many times late in the season have we seen the Mets do fantastic with their fandom during weekday games? It doesn't need to just be Friday, Saturday, Sunday for fans to show up. So that's all I got to say. Fletch is awesome. Fletch in the chat right now, a beauty that I've had the privilege of meeting. He says, I plan on going Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So there we go. Fletch is signing up. He's saying, you know what? I will put my foot down. I will make that happen. I wish I could go to games all the time, says Daniel, great member. But when I live in Saratoga and the Mets are down in Flushing, that's quite a few hour drive. Understood. I'm just saying, if you guys have the opportunity to go to Mets games this week, and maybe you're a little teetering, maybe you're a little hesitant, don't hesitate. Go out your way and do it. Because again, playoffs are not guaranteed still. Even a game up right now, this very well could be the last homestand of the Mets all year long, including playoffs, because they may not make playoffs still. So go out your way, cheer for the boys, Root for Pete Alonso especially. I know it hasn't been easy for us fans at times this year, but even as much as I've been a heavy critic rather, as you guys have too, we need to back our guy, which what very well could be his last homestand as a Met 1, but to a guy that we desperately need to step up, right? If you're trying to get things going with him, he certainly appreciates when the fans are backing him up. Guys, go out there, make your difference. Fans do make a difference. Anyone that thinks that they don't has no clue what we're talking about. I've spoken to active and former MLB players. They've all told me that fans 1000% directly impact the game for them to varying degrees depending on who you talk to. Just go out and entertain for the boys. That's what we want. That's all I'm asking from you guys. And I'll leave it at that. And then, folks, before we wrap this up, let's get into our final segment, which has everything to do with the pitching. Sean Manaea was gorgeous. I am obsessed with Sean Manaea and what we saw in this matchup. So much so that Sean Manaea is one of these guys that I am not only talking about, okay, this is an ace caliber player for us, but Sean Manaea is going to look for such a big bag this offseason that the Mets are looking out hugely knowing that Sean wants to return. We haven't really spoken about this much on the channel yet because I've been planning to do an individual segment for it that we probably will either before the season's end or come the offseason when it's more relevant. Either way, Sean Manaea has made it vocal and open that he would love to return to the Mets this offseason already. He's not opposed to it. And while he's definitely going to be looking for a pretty payday and is not going to be initially taking the option he had on his contract because he's due for more money, as long as the Mets can make sure they don't lock up Sean Manaea for, say, 5-6 years, as long as it's not that length, I'm all aboard bringing Sean Manaea back. And even if Sean is not going to be the same Sean next year he is this year, he's a formidable southpaw Samoan starter that has done the job brilliantly for the Mets in so many ways this year that we at least can have a level of faith and trust in heading into 2025, what is otherwise going to be a pretty uncertain rotation configuration still, trying to figure out what is going to happen outside of guys like Kodai Senga and David Peterson. How many years would you guys be willing to go for Sean Manaea? Let me know on the live show. And in my replay viewers, same applies. Let me just, can we focus this camera one more time, please? Can we get this thing going? There we go. Awesome. Okay, guys. Sean Manaea, the Arsenal. It was easy tonight. It was easy. It was a 1-2-3. Sean didn't even have to go bananas here. Sinker, 78% of the time. Topped out 96, sat 92. Sweeper, 13% of the time. Topped out 79, sat 76. Changeup, 9% of the time. Topped out 87, sat 85. That is what you got there in Sean Manaea. He had himself a 17% whiff rate on the sinker and a 20% whiff rate on the changeup. Had 0 whiffs, surprisingly enough, on his sweeper today. However, still induced the 6 strikeouts in a solid line. Jose Budo struck out the side that we saw in the 8th inning because he was a bulldog. So in love with that. Forcing fastball, only topped out at 95 today. Nothing crazy, but that's okay too. Edwin Diaz did his job. Edwin topped out that we saw today at 99.4, and he sat 98 on the heater there. And the slider topped out 92 and sat 91. Velo's up there on the slider. And Reed Garrett, they had logged as topping out at 100 miles per hour today. They say technically 99.6 on the forcing fastball, but still, 100 mile per hour rounded by Reed Garrett that we saw on the gun on a fastball down out of the zone today. Keith said right away, I don't think that's accurate, and technically it wasn't because it was 99.6, but we like to round here, and I'm going to give the tip of the cap here to Reed Garrett for handling his own there in that big spot when the Mets needed to. He kept them in the ball game, and ultimately the Mets would win thanks to Sterling Marte and his walk-off heroics. My camera. There we go. All right, folks. Now let's hop back to the main slide. Before I get out of here, a couple things I want to let you all know. Yes, it's always a jump scare with WardyNYM. If you know, you know. Let's see, folks. Also, as you guys saw my video earlier today, I'm mentioning this because I see William Gonzalez. How you doing, my man, in the chat? William makes me think of Williams, and Williams is the last name of our top prospect in Jet Williams. Jet Williams has been promoted to AAA Syracuse, that many of you guys know about. I will expand more on AAA Syracuse and the latest on the Mets farm tomorrow because there are no minor league games usually on Mondays or so. Syracuse Mets, I believe, only have 6 minor league games left this season. I don't believe they'll be making cracking postseason play. So that's just for Jet to get some taste at the highest level yet, while also continuing to ramp up, coming back from his wrist injury that had him out for the majority of the 2024 minor league season, unfortunately. I give him 3 years. I think that's very fair on Sean Manaea. I would love to give him, I think 3 would be a nice fit, especially if it's after the second year. Maybe there's a third year, either a mutual option, maybe there's a vesting option if he hits these certain amount of innings. David Stearns gets very creative with contracts like this, and now under the Mets, under the payroll that we have and are willing to spend, I think we're going to really see some creative ways that Stearns not only maximizes the dollars that he's working with, but also maximizes the potential and understanding of a guy, not just trying to overpay them drastically because we have a rich owner in Steve Cohen. We're not going to pull that, because if we do that, you're going to have a Taijuan Walker situation. There's a reason why Taijuan Walker's in the bullpen for the Phillies, and why that contract is aging like milk from the beginning, why the Mets didn't do it. All the more reason why I was pissed off that the Mets couldn't hit against Taijuan Walker Saturday in that matchup. But guys, Jose Quintana, he has been stepping up too. You are 1,000% right. And I'm going to leave you all here. Thank you all so much for watching. I love you all to death. I know that your boy was pretty much stopped to finish in this one. I didn't get a chance to answer as many comments as I would have loved today, but no, it was in good reason, because we had a lot of breakdown. And good news, everybody, great news, we will be taking live callers throughout at least one of the shows. It'll either be tomorrow or Wednesday's show. We will have a live call-in segment, and then when we have the Philadelphia Phillies series starting Thursday, we will be doing a live call-in segment for one of those shows, more than likely too, if not taking on a guest in those. Also, fair warning, folks, if I am not live, in my typical format on Friday, it's because I'll be at the game, so I'll be reacting live as I'm exiting Citi Field, or even staying in the ballpark for hopefully victorious post game. And Saturday, I will probably be coming out a little bit later after the game for coverage potentially. So that's it for me, guys. Love you all to death. Let's go Mets, baby. Let's continue the winning ways. Until then, have a great